A film of ice had formed over him by the time they reached the camp, in spite of it being a sunny day. In the evening, he started running a temperature, and it was such a clear case of membranous pneumonia that even their young camp doctor was able to diagnose it. He was delirious about 3 days, and then began to recover very quickly. He had to be up and about. Spring was near, and they had to get ready for new operations. While Nadia lay ill, he sometimes went into the women's dugout to see how she and the baby were getting on. And every time he came away with a sinking heart, fearing for the safety of these two helpless creatures. But once Nadia was back on her feet, she gradually got into the way of camp life and helped Luba Rosha, who praised her sky high for her industriousness. There was no need to fear for her now. She became a partisan woman like all the others, tending the wounded and sick, sewing, patching, and washing clothes. He and Nadia seldom met. She took her orders from Luba Rosha, and what with the baby to look after, she never had an idle moment. Once, in a moment of homesickness, he dropped into the dugout to take a look at the baby. Nadia was rocking the child to sleep, and there was no one else there. She seemed startled. "How are you getting on?" "Fine, thank you, Ivan Vasilievich." "And how is young Vita?" "Fine, thank you, Ivan Vasilievich." "Stop thanking me, for pity's sake. You saved our lives. Never thank me for it anymore." He felt embarrassed and awkward. He disliked her humble manner. She had the guts to leave her traitor husband and home and make for the forest a week before the child was due, so why couldn't she behave with the same courage, darling, and dignity now? Where was her pride as a woman, as a mother? Why did she cringe like that? They didn't make a conversation of it that time. Luba Rosha took care of him when he felt ill and bored him terribly with her perpetual grumbling. One evening, Nadia suddenly appeared in his dugout. The doctor had told her to apply the cupping glasses to the patient, as he himself had to go to Zagonia, where the epidemic of measles and scarlet fever had broken out. Nadia was amazingly bold and self-confident, but then everyone is with patience and did her job with professional efficiency.
A snowstorm had started up. The roads were drifted over. The frost was fierce. There were 70 men. They went out scouting or sat cooked in the dugout, where the air was thick with tobacco smoke and where the warmth from the red-hot iron stove was immediately sucked out by the wind the moment someone opened the door. 70 men, not a small number, but they were poorly armed and had a miserable store of ammunition. Nor did they have an experienced commander. Antonyuk, who before the war had managed the regional agricultural department, had naturally none. It was a good thing that in September they were joined with Budika, a trained engineer, with his group of sappers. Today's memory writers knew all the answers 20 years after the event, and then, in 1941, Antonyuk did not know how to procure food for his 70 men. Even later, when they had gained experience, were able to contact the party center at any time and learned a lot, the problem remained as acute, for it infringed upon the interest of the population. Antonyuk, an agronomist whose parents were peasants, was concerned over this from his birth. He realized that the war would not be over soon, that it wasn't just for the winter that they were in the forest, with him worrying where to get bread, cartridges and a drum from which to make a stove in the place. of one that had burned through. He had to take good care of his men, to last out in the long and stubborn battle with the restless enemy. He had to keep them fed and warm. Looking back now, Antoniuk was thinking that the Nazi strategists had probably become so clever after the good kick they had got it hurt most. None of them could have suspected that the handful of first bandits, as they were called in their reports, would develop into such a force. Had it occurred to them, and had they begun the blockades of 1943 in the winter of 1941, Antoniuk's detached would have had it tough enough. That winter that he had feared most was the German attack. There were moments of despair, which he had not tried to let anyone see.
Alice ne rentre pas. Il était sorti dans l'après-midi avant qu'il se promène, mais il n'était de retour à minuit. Olga comprenait qu'il l'attendait en vain. Il ne veut pas de les passer, il ne reviendrait pas de ces heures-ci. Envahi d'angoisse, de peur, de mauvais pressentiments, il ne pouvait non seulement dormir, mais rester couché comme un rêveur à l'heure dans les maisons, n'ayant pour tout vêtement qu'une chemise de nuit. Il marchait pieds nus sur la plage froide, et il ne sentait pas ce froid. Il avait peur des ombres dans les cours et dans les maisons, avant Cécile et lui étaient jamais arrivés. L'éclair de lune soulignait encore plus le froid de ces nuits libres. Il gelait pur fondre. Un coupe de feu retentit quelque part, peut-être à l'Animiga. Mais il lui sembla qu'il s'était tout près dans les roues. Les suppléments de locomotive n'étaient jamais superchauds. On aurait dit que le chemin de faire passer près de la Komarovka. Les volets n'étaient pas parfumés. On les regardait tantôt par une fenêtre, tantôt par l'autre. C'était allé qu'il en avait pris, tenait fermé, les volets. L'obscurité l'accablait.
The rain was most timely. It had saved the lives of so many good people, washing away their footprints and muffling the sound of their tread. He would have said a thanksgiving prayer if he had believed in God, thanking Him for His mercy. The pain in his wounded shoulder and the searing pain in his heart from the bitterness of defeat had dulled. What was done was done. He could not bring back the dead. He had to think of the living. No, each one was his own commander that day. He believed in his men, in their cleverness and resourcefulness. He was confident that many would break through, a great many, and they'd all meet in their appointed place. He was not sure about himself, not that it mattered very much in the long run. There'd be others. Budyka, Kosach, Katkov, the commissar. One of them would collect the detachments into a brigade again, so he did not have to worry on that score. If it wasn't for Nadia and the sick 18-month-old baby. He cursed himself for his weakness. The times he had wanted to settle them in some safe place, but Nadia was convinced that the safest place for her and Vita was to be whenever he was. A woman's attachment was truly undefeatable.